Picture this: a tiny dot of volcanic rock jutting out of the North Pacific Ocean, roughly 1,000 miles southwest of Anchorage, Alaska. Wind-battered, fog-soaked, and brutally remote. And for decades it had one of the most humiliating place names in cartographic history: Rat Island. Not metaphorically, not ironically. The island literally became known as Rat Island, named for the abundant rat population that had taken over. Which raises a very simple question. What happens when you remove them? All of them. Every single last one. The answer is one of the most jaw-dropping ecological detective stories of the 21st century. The data scientists collected over 11 years reads less like a dry research paper and more like a thriller, where the ocean itself is a plot twist. So buckle up. We're going species by species, layer by layer, through the remarkable unraveling and rebuilding of an entire world. And some of what happened, even the scientists didn't see coming. Let's start at the beginning, because you need to understand how bad things got before you can appreciate how wild the comeback was. Along the western edge of Alaska's Aleutian Archipelago, non-native rats were accidentally introduced following shipwrecks dating back to the 1700s and World War II occupation. They first spilled from a 1780s shipwreck that, except for the stowaway rats, left no survivors. The ship is gone. The crew is gone. But the rats, they thrived. Hardy, omnivorous, and tightly associated with humans, rats are widely considered an especially destructive invasive species, introduced to most of the world's islands, where they're believed to be a major actor behind seabird extinctions and declines. On Rat Island, as a new direct predator to native species, they unleashed a cascade of disruption. They preyed upon shorebird eggs and chicks, nearly wiping out the island's breeding shorebird population. And here is where it gets genuinely eerie. When researcher Carolyn Curl first visited, she immediately noticed the silence. When you're on an island that's never had rats, it's just like birds everywhere. It's really loud, she says. So when you get to an island that does have rats, you really notice, because it's cacophony versus quiet. An island that should have been raucous with life was just wind. That silence was the sound of an ecosystem broken. So in 2008, a coalition from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Nature Conservancy, and the nonprofit Island Conservation set out to eradicate the rats using poison pellets dropped from a helicopter. Aerial bombardment by rodenticide on a remote Alaskan island. Conservation does not mess around. No evidence of rats was found when the island was surveyed in spring 2009, and Rat Island was declared officially rat-free 2 years after bait application. The eradication wasn't clean. About 45 bald eagles died from eating rats that had consumed the rodenticide. You're trying to save the birds, and in the process, some of the most iconic birds in North America pay the price. It was a brutal trade-off, and the scientists were honest about that. But here's the question that makes this story worth telling. Did it work? Did removing one invasive species actually change anything? The answer came in waves, and each wave was more surprising than the last. Within just 5 years, something remarkable was already happening. Shorebirds began returning, resuming their roles as apex predators, not slowly, not tentatively. Several species, including rock sandpiper, pigeon guillemot, common eider, red-faced cormorant, and gray-crowned rosy finch, were successfully nesting. Black oystercatchers and glaucous-winged gulls had started to return. And then came the moment that genuinely shocked researchers. Just 5 years after eradication, tufted puffins recolonized and bred successfully for the first time 6 nests, compared to none before eradication. A species the rats had completely excluded was now setting up home. And the Aleutian giant song sparrow, previously thought to have been extirpated, appeared on the island for the first time, indicating a likely return, a bird presumed locally extinct, just showing up, as if it had been waiting offshore, checking the situation, and finally decided, okay, the rats are gone, I'm going back in. Now here's a question for you. If you were a scientist watching all of this unfold, would you have predicted that the recovery would stop at the birds, or would you have expected it to keep going deeper into the ecosystem? Comment your answer below. Because what happened next is where this story goes from impressive to genuinely mind-bending. Researchers were able to compare ecosystem data from surveys during rat dominance with a recovering ecosystem 5 years later and a fully recovered system after 11 years. And what the 11-year check-in revealed was that the recovery had reached into places nobody fully anticipated. It involves the ocean. Without birds consuming herbivorous seashore invertebrates such as snails and limpets, those plant eaters had flourished, significantly driving down the abundance of marine kelp. Walk through that chain one more time, because it's almost absurdly indirect. Rats eat birds. No birds means no predator for the snails and limpets. Snails and limpets eat kelp. More snails equals less kelp. Rats who never went near the ocean were restructuring the seafloor around the island through a chain of cause and effect that skipped 3 levels of the food web. 11 years after eradication, the predicted trophic cascade in the rocky intertidal returned, with significant decreases in invertebrate abundances and increases in fleshy algal cover, a community resembling those on rat-free islands. Rats had indirectly structured the intertidal community via their role as apex predator in a 4-level trophic cascade. Rats controlling birds, controlling invertebrates, controlling algae, on land and in the sea. That's not a food web, that's a conspiracy. With the rats removed, the seabirds returned and are again consuming seashore invertebrates, which has allowed the kelp community to rebound. Kelp coming back. Because the rats are gone. If you tried to explain that chain of logic to someone who hadn't just heard it laid out step by step, they would think you were making it up. But the data is right there, published in scientific reports, peer-reviewed and verified. And the scientists themselves admitted they were caught off guard. We were surprised that the level of recovery unfolded so quickly. We thought it could be longer, said lead author Carolyn Curley, Associate Professor of Biological Sciences at UC San Diego. When the researchers are surprised by how fast nature healed itself, that tells you something important. Ecosystems have a resilience and a memory that we consistently underestimate. Numbers of birds and invertebrates, as well as kelp cover, reached or approached the same levels observed on islands that never had rats. Not better than it was with rats, better to the point where it looks like it never had rats at all. 11 years. That's it. The island rebounded so much that the U.S. Board on Geographic Names renamed it Hawadax Island, a return to the original Aleut name, and it got its voice back. Remember that silence Carolyn Curl noticed when she first arrived. The island is hardly recognizable among the cacophony of birds calling everywhere. It's alive with bird fledglings, teals, eiders, wrens, sparrows, eagles, peregrine falcons, gulls, sandpipers. From silence to cacophony. From Rat Island to Hawadax. From broken to whole. So what does all of this actually mean As one researcher put it, studies like these are a scary reminder of just how much a rat population can modify an entire ecosystem. But they are also hopeful because they show that simple changes can course-correct whole ecosystem processes. One intervention, remove one species, and a cascade of recovery follows, on land, in the intertidal zone, and in the ocean, in ways that took scientists more than a decade to fully document, and that still surprised them when they did. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is now preparing to eradicate invasive rats from 4 more islands, Amchitka, Attu, Great Sitkin, and Kiska, to eliminate their impacts and restore natural island ecosystems. Because the lesson of Howadax is this: nature is not fragile, it is patient, it is waiting. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is remove the thing we accidentally put in the way, and then watch what happens. The web of life doesn't need us to rebuild it. It just needs us to stop breaking it. As Carolyn Kurla put it, this study is an example of something positive that can happen when we humans take action to clean up after ourselves. If you want more stories about the hidden machinery of ecosystems, the unexpected connections, the surprising recoveries, and the moments where science reveals something genuinely astonishing, subscribe and hit the bell. There's a lot more where this came from, and the next one is going to blow your mind just as hard.